Robert Wilson was tired of sitting in his big office all day. As the CEO of Elite Motors, one of the biggest car companies in the country, he rarely got to see how his business really worked. He made all the big decisions, but he didn't know if his workers were treating customers right. "I need to see what's really happening," Robert said to himself one morning as he looked out his office window. He had built Elite Motors from nothing 20 years ago. Now they had 30 showrooms across the country. But lately, customer reviews weren't as good as they used to be. Robert walked to his closet and pulled out some old clothes. He put on worn jeans with a small hole in one knee. He found an old t-shirt with a faded design. Then he added a baseball cap and some fake glasses that changed how he looked. When he checked the mirror, he smiled. No one would know he was the boss worth millions of dollars. "Perfect," he said. "Now I look like a regular guy who might buy a car." His plan was simple but risky. He would visit his main showroom and pretend to be a customer with money to spend. He wouldn't tell anyone who he really was. This way, he could see how his salespeople treated normal customers. The next morning, Robert drove his old pickup truck to the showroom instead of his usual fancy car. He parked far from the entrance, so no one would connect him to the beat-up truck. Before getting out, he looked at his notes about the salespeople who worked there. He had never met most of them in person. "Time to see what's really going on," he said to himself. Walking into the big, shiny showroom made Robert proud. The place looked amazing with its bright lights and clean floors. New cars sat under perfect lighting, their paint gleaming. This was his biggest and most important showroom, right in the heart of the city. Robert stood near the entrance for a few minutes. He counted 3 salespeople in the showroom. They were standing together by the coffee machine, talking and laughing. None of them looked his way or tried to help him. "Interesting," Robert thought. "I've been here 5 minutes and nobody has even said hello." He walked slowly around the showroom, looking at different cars. He stopped at a new sports car model that cost over $100,000. It was their most expensive car, and Robert had helped design it himself. He bent down to look inside the window. After 15 minutes of walking around, still no one had come to help him. Robert noticed the salespeople looking at him from time to time, but they just went back to their conversation. He heard them laugh and wondered if they were laughing about him. Finally, a salesman with a name tag that said Mike walked over. He didn't smile or look friendly. He looked Robert up and down, taking in his old clothes and messy hair. "Can I help you?" Mike asked in a bored voice. He didn't sound like he really wanted to help at all. "Yes," Robert said politely. "I'm interested in the new XR9 sports model. Could you tell me about it?" Mike raised his eyebrows and gave a small laugh. "You know that car costs $105,000, right? More with the extra features." "I know," Robert nodded. "I've been saving up. I'd like to learn more about it." Mike turned and called to his friends by the coffee machine. "Hey guys, this man wants to know about the XR9. The other salespeople looked over and smiled in a way that wasn't friendly. Mike turned back to Robert with a smirk on his face. "Look, buddy. No offense, but guys who can afford these cars don't dress like that. Maybe I can show you something more in your price range. We have some used cars out back." Robert felt his face getting hot, but he stayed calm and didn't reveal who he was. What happened next would change everything at Elite Motors forever. Robert took a deep breath and stayed calm. He had not expected to be treated this way in his own showroom. The way Mike looked at him made him feel small and unwelcome. "I'd still like to know about the XR9, Robert said firmly. "I've been saving for a long time." Mike sighed loudly and rolled his eyes. "Fine. But I'm telling you, this is a waste of my time. I work on commission, you know." As Mike began to show him the car, he did it quickly and without care. He pointed at things but didn't explain them well. He kept checking his watch and looking toward the door, hoping for a real customer to walk in. "This car has a V8 engine and goes from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, Mike said fast, like he was reading a list. It has leather seats and a good sound system. Any questions? Robert knew the car had much more to offer. He had spent years making sure it was perfect. But Mike didn't mention any of the special features that made the car worth its high price. What about the safety features? Robert asked. And the new touch-screen system. Mike looked annoyed. Look, do you want to test drive it or not? I have other things to do today. I'd like to, yes, Robert said. Mike laughed. I need to see your ID and proof that you can afford this car before we go for a drive. Company policy. This was a lie. Robert knew there was no such policy. He was about to say something when a young woman walked up to them. Everything okay over here, Mike? She asked with a friendly smile. Her name tag said Sarah. Just fine, Mike said. Just explaining to this guy that he needs to show he can afford the car before a test drive. Sarah looked confused. That's not our policy, Mike. We never ask customers to prove they can afford a car. She turned to Robert with a kind smile. I'm sorry about that, sir. I'd be happy to help you with the XR9 if you'd like. Mike's face turned red. Whatever. He's all yours. He walked away quickly to the other side of the showroom. Sarah turned to Robert with a real smile. Please don't mind Mike. He judges people by how they look, and that's not right. Now, what would you like to know about the XR9? For the next 30 minutes, Sarah showed Robert everything about the car. She was patient and kind. She answered all his questions and even told him things about the car that Robert himself didn't know. She talked about how the engine worked, the safety features, and the special leather seats that were made by hand. Would you like some coffee while we talk about financing options? Sarah asked. Robert was surprised by how different Sarah was from Mike. That would be nice. Thank you. As they sat down at her desk, Sarah brought him coffee in a real mug, not a paper cup. She took out some papers and began to explain the different ways to pay for the car. We have several options, she said. You can pay all at once, or we have good financing plans. The interest rates are low right now. Robert noticed that Sarah treated him with respect. She didn't assume he couldn't afford the car. She didn't rush him or make him feel bad about his clothes. You've been very helpful, Sarah, Robert said. Much more helpful than Mike was. Sarah smiled but looked a bit sad. Mike sells the most cars here, so he gets away with being rude to people he thinks won't buy. Our manager lets him do it because he brings in money. I don't think it's right, but I'm still new here. Robert nodded. Can I have your business card? I'd like to think about this overnight. Of course, Sarah said, handing him her card. Please call me directly when you come back. I'd be happy to help you more. As Robert walked out of the showroom, he was deep in thought. He had seen both the worst and the best of his company today. Mike was everything he didn't want Elite Motors to be. Sarah was everything he hoped for. Now he had to decide what to do next, and what he was planning would surprise everyone. That night, Robert couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what happened at the showroom. Mike's rude behavior and Sarah's kindness showed him two very different sides of his company. I built Elite Motors to treat all customers with respect, Robert said to himself as he paced in his living room. What happened to that goal? The next morning, Robert woke up early. He put on his best suit, shined his shoes, and drove his expensive car to work. He parked in his special spot with the CEO sign. Today, everyone would know exactly who he was. Robert walked into his main office building. His assistant jumped up when she saw him. Good morning, Mr. Wilson, she said. I didn't know you were coming in today. Change of plans, Janet, Robert said. I need you to call Tom Harris, the manager of our main showroom. Tell him I'm coming there in 1 hour for a surprise visit. Don't tell him why. Yes, sir, Janet said, looking confused. Robert never made surprise visits. Robert spent the next hour looking at the sales numbers for the main showroom. Mike's name was at the top of the list every month. He was selling twice as many cars as anyone else. Sarah's name was near the bottom. Interesting. Robert thought. The rudest person sells the most cars. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., Robert walked into the main showroom. Everything looked different from yesterday. The place was extra clean. All the salespeople wore perfect suits and big smiles. Tom Harris, the manager, ran up to him. "Mr. Wilson, what a surprise. Welcome to your showroom," Tom said, shaking Robert's hand hard. "If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared better." "That's why I didn't tell you," Robert said. "I want to see the real showroom, not a special version." Tom laughed nervously. "Of course, sir. Would you like a tour?" "No," Robert said. "I want to meet your team. All of them. Can you gather everyone in the meeting room right now?" 10 minutes later, all 15 showroom employees stood in the meeting room. They looked nervous. No one knew why the CEO was there. Mike stood in the front, smiling confidently. Sarah was in the back, looking down at her shoes. Robert walked to the front of the room. He looked at each person carefully. Mike and Sarah didn't recognize him from yesterday with his different clothes. "Thank you all for meeting with me," Robert began. "I've been the CEO of Elite Motors for 15 years. In that time, we've grown from one small showroom to 30 locations across the country." Everyone nodded. They knew this already. "But somewhere along the way, we may have lost something important," Robert continued. "Yesterday, I came to this showroom as a regular customer. I wore old jeans and a t-shirt. I wanted to see how our salespeople treat normal people." The room got very quiet. Some people looked confused. Others started to look worried. "I stood in this showroom for 15 minutes before anyone helped me," Robert said. "When someone finally did, he treated me like I didn't belong here because of how I looked." All eyes turned to Mike, who was now looking uncomfortable. His confident smile was gone. "That person told me I couldn't afford our cars," Robert continued. "He lied about company policies. He rushed through information and tried to send me away." Mike's face turned white. He now realized who the man in old clothes had been. "But then," Robert said, his voice getting softer, "another person stepped in. She treated me with respect. She was patient and kind. She didn't judge me by my clothes. She showed me what Elite Motors should be." Now everyone looked at Sarah, whose eyes were wide with surprise. "Today," Robert said firmly, "things are going to change in this showroom. And those changes start right now." The room was completely silent. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. What Robert did next would shock everyone in the room. Robert looked around the silent room. Every face showed worry or surprise. Mike was staring at the floor. Sarah was standing straight, but her hands were shaking. "Mike," Robert said in a calm voice, "please step forward." Mike slowly walked to the front of the room. His face was red, and sweat showed on his forehead. He looked like he was about to lose his job. Everyone thought he would. "You've been our top salesperson for 2 years," Robert said. "Your numbers are impressive." Mike nodded slightly, still not looking up. "But yesterday, you showed me that numbers aren't everything," Robert continued. "You judged me by my clothes. You treated me with no respect. You lied about our policies." "Sir, I can explain," Mike started. Robert held up his hand. "No need. Your actions spoke clearly." He turned to the room. "Is this how we want to treat people who walk into our showrooms? Is this who we are as a company?" The room stayed quiet. Tom Harris, the manager, looked very uncomfortable. "Tom," Robert said to the manager, "did you know this was happening?" Tom cleared his throat. "Well, sir, Mike sells the most cars. I thought. I mean, his results are good. So you let him treat people poorly as long as he sold cars?" Robert asked. "I wouldn't put it that way, but—" Tom's voice trailed off. Robert shook his head. "That's not what Elite Motors stands for." He walked over to where Sarah was standing. "Sarah, please come forward," he said kindly. Sarah walked to the front, standing next to Mike. She looked nervous but stood tall. "Yesterday, You showed true customer service, Robert said to her. You were helpful and respectful. You didn't judge me by my appearance. You showed me what Elite Motors should be. Sarah's eyes grew wide. Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job. That's exactly right, Robert said with a smile. You were doing your job the way it should be done. Robert turned to face everyone again. Now came the moment they were all waiting for. What would he do to Mike? Would he fire him in front of everyone? Would he close down the showroom? The tension in the room was so strong you could almost touch it. Here's what's going to happen, Robert said firmly. Starting today, we're changing how we measure success in this company. He walked to a whiteboard and picked up a marker. From now on, we will track two things, he said, writing on the board. Sales numbers and customer feedback. Both will count equally for bonuses and promotions. Everyone looked surprised. This was not what they expected. Mike, Robert said, turning back to him. You have excellent sales skills, but your customer service needs serious improvement. Mike nodded, looking slightly relieved that he wasn't being fired on the spot. Sarah, Robert continued, you have amazing customer service skills, but your sales numbers could be better. Yes, sir, Sarah said quietly. So here's my decision, Robert announced. Sarah will be our new training director. Sarah gasped. What? You'll teach everyone in this showroom how to treat customers, Robert explained. You'll show them what respect looks like. You'll help them understand that every person who walks through our doors deserves our best service. Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. But sir, I've only been here for 6 months. And you already understand what many people never learn, Robert said with a smile. You'll start next week. With a big raise, of course. The room burst into applause. Everyone except Mike and Tom looked happy for Sarah. As for you, Mike, Robert said, turning back to him. The room went quiet again. Mike looked like he was holding his breath. I'm not going to fire you, Robert said. Mike let out a big sigh of relief. But Robert added, holding up one finger, what I have planned for you might be harder than losing your job. Everyone looked confused. What did Robert mean? What was he going to do with Mike that was more difficult than firing him? The answer would surprise them all. Robert asked Mike to step into the manager's office with him. Tom, the manager, followed them. The door closed, and the other workers stayed in the meeting room, wondering what would happen. Sit down, Mike, Robert said, pointing to a chair. Mike sat down slowly. His hands were shaking. Tom stood by the wall, looking worried about his own job now. Do you know why Elite Motors has been successful for so many years? Robert asked. Mike shook his head. Because we built a company that cares about people, Robert said. Not just rich people, all people. I understand, sir, Mike said quietly, and I'm very sorry about yesterday. I made a terrible mistake. Robert looked at him carefully. Was it a mistake, Mike? Or is that how you always treat people who don't look wealthy? Mike didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands. I thought my job was to sell expensive cars to rich people, Mike finally said. I didn't think it was worth my time to help people who probably couldn't afford them. And that's the problem, Robert said. You decided who deserved your help based on how they looked. Mike nodded. Yes, sir. I was wrong. Robert walked to the window and looked out at the showroom floor, where the shiny cars sat under bright lights. I'm not going to fire you, Mike, Robert said. But I am going to teach you something valuable. Mike looked up, surprised. Thank you for not firing me, sir. Robert turned back to face him. Starting tomorrow, you will no longer be a salesperson. What? Mike asked, confused. But that's my job. Not anymore, Robert said. For the next 3 months, you'll work in our service department. Mike's mouth fell open. The service department? You mean fixing cars? No, Robert said. You'll be at the front desk. You'll greet every customer who comes in for repairs or maintenance. You'll listen to their problems. You'll help people who are unhappy because their cars aren't working right. Mike looked shocked. The service department was considered the hardest place to work. Customers there were often angry about car problems or repair costs. After 3 months in service, Robert continued, "You'll spend 3 months working with our cleaning team." Cleaning? Mike couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Yes," Robert said. "You'll help clean the cars, the showroom floors, and the bathrooms. You'll learn what it takes to make this place look good for customers." Mike's face turned red again. "Sir, I'm your top salesperson." "I don't think." "That's the problem, Mike," Robert cut in. "You haven't been thinking about what really matters. You've only been thinking about sales numbers and your commission checks." Mike fell silent. After 6 months, Robert said, "If you've learned what I hope you'll learn, you can come back to sales, but with a new understanding of what Elite Motors stands for." Mike slowly nodded. "I understand, sir." Robert then turned to Tom, the manager. "And you, Tom, have been failing as a leader." Tom swallowed hard. "Sir, You let Mike treat customers poorly because his sales were good," Robert said. "You chose money over our company values." "I'm sorry, sir," Tom said. "It won't happen again." "You're right about that," Robert said, "because you'll be working alongside Mike for the next 6 months. Both of you will learn what this company is really about from the ground up." Tom's face went pale. "Yes, sir," he whispered. "Sarah will be temporary manager while you're gone," Robert added. "And if she does well, the position might become permanent." Both men sat in stunned silence. This was not what they expected at all. "One more thing," Robert said as he walked to the door. "I'll be making more undercover visits to all our showrooms in the coming months. No one will know when or where I'll show up next." As Robert opened the door to leave, he turned back one last time. "This company will treat every customer with respect, no matter what they wear or how much money they have. That's not just our policy, it's who we are." Robert walked out, leaving Mike and Tom to think about their new future. The real changes at Elite Motors were only just beginning. 1 month later, the main showroom of Elite Motors looked very different. Sarah sat at the manager's desk, looking over the sales reports. The numbers were good. In fact, they were better than when Tom and Mike had been in charge. Sarah had changed how things worked. She made sure every customer who walked in was greeted within 1 minute. She trained the sales team to be helpful and kind to everyone. She put up a big sign in the break room that said, "Every person deserves respect." A knock on her door made her look up. "Come in," she called. Robert walked in, smiling. "Good morning, Manager Collins." Sarah stood up quickly. "Mr. Wilson, I didn't know you were coming today." "That's the point of surprise visits," Robert said with a laugh. "How are things going?" "Very well, sir," Sarah said. "Sales are up 15% from last month. And look at these customer reviews." She handed him a folder. Robert read through the papers. The reviews were excellent. People wrote things like, "Best car buying experience ever," and "I felt respected and valued." "Amazing work, Sarah," Robert said. "You've done more in 1 month than Tom did in a year." Sarah smiled. "Thank you, sir. The team has worked hard to change." "And how are our 2 special employees doing?" Robert asked. Sarah's smile got bigger. "Would you like to see for yourself?" They walked through the showroom and into the service department at the back of the building. There at the front desk sat Mike. He was on the phone, talking to a customer. He looked different. His fancy suit was gone. He wore a simple shirt with the company logo. "Yes, Mrs. Johnson, I understand your car is making that noise again," Mike said into the phone. "I know how frustrating that must be. I've marked your appointment as urgent. We'll look at it first thing tomorrow morning." When he hung up, he noticed Robert and Sarah watching him. "Mr. Wilson," Mike said, standing up quickly, "I didn't expect to see you today." "How's it going, Mike?" Robert asked. Mike thought for a moment. "It's different. Hard sometimes. People get angry when their cars have problems. And how do you handle that? Robert asked. I listen, Mike said. That's the biggest thing I've learned. People want to be heard. They want to know someone cares about their problems. Robert nodded. That's exactly right. I never understood that before, Mike admitted. When I was selling cars, I only cared about the sale, not the person. And has that changed? Robert asked. Mike looked down for a second, then back up. Yes, sir. I see people differently now. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves respect. Robert smiled. Good. That's very good to hear. And where's Tom today? Robert asked Sarah. He's with the cleaning team, Sarah said. They're detailing cars in the back lot. They walked through a door to the back of the building. Outside, in the hot sun, several people were cleaning cars. Tom was washing a car window, sweat running down his face. When he saw Robert, he straightened up. Mr. Wilson, Tom said, wiping his hands on a towel. Good to see you, sir. How are you doing, Tom? Robert asked. Tom looked at the car he was cleaning, then back at Robert. I've learned a lot, sir. This job is harder than I thought. These guys work so hard to make every car perfect. I never appreciated that before. And what else have you learned? Robert asked. That every job here matters, Tom said. From the CEO to the cleaning team, we all have an important part to play. Robert nodded. That's right. We're all one team. As they walked back to the showroom, Robert felt proud. His plan was working. Mike and Tom were learning valuable lessons. Sarah was proving to be an excellent manager. The company was changing for the better. What you did was brave, sir, Sarah said as they walked. Most bosses would have just fired them. Sometimes people don't need to be fired, Robert said. They need to be taught. Everyone deserves a second chance. What Robert didn't tell Sarah was that his undercover visits weren't over. In fact, they were just beginning. Next week, he would visit another showroom in another city. No one knew where he would show up next or what he would find there. 3 months passed. Robert sat in his big office at Elite Motors headquarters. He was looking at reports from all 30 showrooms across the country. The changes he started were spreading. Sales were up. Customer reviews were better than ever. Robert smiled as he read the latest report from Sarah. The main showroom was now the best in the company. Her new training program was working so well that other managers wanted to use it too. His phone rang. It was Janet, his assistant. Mr. Wilson, Mike and Tom are here to see you, she said. Send them in, Robert replied. The door opened. Mike and Tom walked in. They looked different from before. They weren't wearing fancy suits now. They had on simple work clothes with the Elite Motors logo. They stood straighter, and their faces showed more respect. Thank you for seeing us, Mr. Wilson, Tom said. Have a seat, Robert said, pointing to the chairs in front of his desk. It's been 3 months since we last talked. How are you both doing? Mike spoke first. Sir, these 3 months in the service department have changed me. I've learned so much. Tell me what you've learned, Robert said. I learned that every customer matters, Mike said. Rich or poor, they all deserve our best service. I've learned to listen, really listen, to people's problems. Tom nodded. And I've learned that being a leader isn't just about sales numbers. It's about taking care of your team and your customers. Robert looked at both men carefully. Do you think you've changed enough to go back to your old jobs? Mike and Tom looked at each other. Then Mike surprised Robert with his answer. Sir, I don't want to go back to sales yet, Mike said. I'd like to finish the full 6 months like you planned. I still have 3 months with the cleaning team. I think I need that experience too. Robert raised his eyebrows. Really? Why? Because I'm still learning, Mike said honestly. The people in service have taught me so much about caring for customers. I want to learn from the cleaning team too. They see things the rest of us miss. Tom nodded. I feel the same way, sir. I wasn't a good manager before because I didn't understand all parts of the business. I need more time to learn. Robert leaned back in his chair, impressed. This was not what he expected. Very well, he said. You'll both continue as planned. But I'd like to hear from you regularly about what you're learning. Yes, sir, they both said together. After they left, Robert called Sarah on the phone. Sarah, how would you feel about making your temporary manager position permanent? He asked. There was a pause on the line. Really? But what about Tom? He's not ready to come back, Robert explained. And you've proven yourself to be an excellent manager. The showroom has never performed better. I'd be honored, sir, Sarah said, sounding excited. Thank you for this opportunity. You earned it, Robert said. And I have one more thing to ask you. The training program you created has been so successful that I want to use it in all our showrooms. Would you be willing to help with that? Of course, Sarah said. Good, Robert replied. Because I'm promoting you to training director for the entire company. You'll still manage the main showroom, but you'll also train managers at all 30 locations. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Mr. Wilson, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Robert said with a smile. We need more people like you shaping this company's future. Then yes, Sarah said. Definitely yes. When Robert hung up the phone, he felt proud of what was happening at Elite Motors. His undercover visit had started something important. The company was becoming what he had always wanted it to be, a place where everyone was treated with respect. But the story wasn't over yet. Robert had one more surprise planned, and it would change Elite Motors forever. 6 months had passed since Robert's undercover visit to his main showroom. The changes at Elite Motors were amazing. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time high. Sales were better than ever. Sarah's training program was now used in all 30 showrooms. Robert called a special meeting at the company headquarters. All showroom managers and key employees were invited. The large meeting room was full of people. Sarah sat in the front row. At the back, Mike and Tom stood quietly. They had just finished their 6 months of special training. Robert walked to the front of the room. Everyone got quiet. Thank you all for coming today, Robert began. 6 months ago, I did something unusual. I visited our main showroom dressed in old clothes. I wanted to see how customers are really treated when no one knows the boss is watching. Many people in the room looked surprised. They hadn't heard this story. What I saw that day disappointed me, Robert continued. But it also showed me what needed to change. And thanks to all of you, those changes have happened. He showed some slides on a big screen. The numbers were impressive. Sales up 27%. Customer complaints down 68%. Employee satisfaction improved by 45%. Today, Elite Motors is stronger than ever, Robert said. But we're not stopping here. I have a big announcement to make. Everyone leaned forward, curious about what Robert would say next. We're changing our company slogan, Robert said. From now on, our slogan will be, Everyone deserves respect. This will be on all our ads, all our buildings, and all our business cards. People nodded and smiled. They liked the new slogan. And there's more, Robert continued. Starting next month, we're opening a new kind of car dealership. It will sell good used cars at fair prices to people who can't afford new luxury cars. We'll call it Elite for Everyone. This news caused excited whispers around the room. This was a big change for a company that only sold expensive cars. Sarah Collins will lead this new project, Robert announced. Sarah looked shocked. Me? Yes, Robert said with a smile. Your training program will be used there too. Every customer, no matter how much they can spend, will be treated with the same respect and care. Sarah stood up. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Robert said. Then he looked to the back of the room. Mike and Tom, please come to the front. Mike and Tom walked slowly to the front. They looked nervous. Everyone was watching them. These two men have completed a special 6-month training program, Robert explained to the room. They've worked in our service department and on our cleaning team. They've learned every part of our business from the ground up. Mike and Tom stood tall, waiting to hear what Robert would say next. Mike, Robert said, you were once our top salesperson, but you didn't treat people right. What have you learned these past 6 months? Mike looked out at the crowd. I learned that selling cars isn't just about making money. It's about helping people find what they need. Everyone who walks through our doors matters, no matter what they wear or how much they can spend. Robert nodded. And Tom, what did you learn as a manager? I learned that a good manager cares about more than numbers, Tom said. A good manager helps his team be their best and makes sure every customer feels welcome. Well said, Robert replied. And that's why I've decided to give you both important roles in our new Elite for Everyone dealerships. Mike and Tom looked surprised. Mike, you'll be training new salespeople, Robert said. And Tom, you'll help open new locations as we grow. You both understand our values now. You can help others learn them too. The room burst into applause. This was a second chance that no one expected. Mike and Tom shook Robert's hand, looking grateful and proud. As the meeting ended, Robert felt satisfied. His undercover journey had done more than fix one showroom. It had changed the whole company. And the biggest change was still to come. 1 year had passed since Robert's undercover visit. Elite Motors had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The company now had 30 luxury showrooms and 20 Elite for Everyone locations, selling good used cars. Both parts of the business were doing very well. Robert sat in his office, reading a special letter. It was from a family who had bought their first car from an Elite for Everyone showroom. They wrote how kind the salespeople were and how the car had changed their lives. Robert smiled as he pinned the letter to his wall with many others like it. His assistant knocked on the door. Sir, they're ready for you downstairs. Thank you, Janet, Robert said, standing up. This is a big day. Robert took the elevator down to the main floor of the headquarters building. A large room was filled with reporters and cameras. All 30 showroom managers were there, including Sarah. Mike and Tom stood with the Elite for Everyone team. Everyone looked excited. Robert walked to a small stage at the front of the room. The crowd got quiet. Good morning, everyone, Robert began. Thank you for coming to this special announcement. He looked around the room at all the faces watching him. So much had changed in 1 year. 12 months ago, I walked into my own showroom dressed in old clothes, Robert said. What happened that day changed everything for Elite Motors. It showed me what was wrong with our company and what was right. Robert pointed to a large screen behind him. It showed pictures of the new Elite for Everyone showrooms. It showed happy customers and smiling employees. Our company has grown in ways I never expected, Robert continued. We've helped more people get good cars than ever before. We've created hundreds of new jobs. And most importantly, we've built a business where everyone is treated with respect. The crowd clapped. Reporters took pictures. Today, I'm here to make a very special announcement, Robert said. After 30 years as CEO of Elite Motors, I have decided to step down. Gasps filled the room. No one had expected this news. Sarah looked shocked. Mike and Tom glanced at each other with wide eyes. But don't worry, Robert said with a smile. I'm not going far. I'll still be on the company board. But it's time for new leadership to take Elite Motors to the next level. Robert looked at Sarah in the front row. Sarah Collins, would you please join me on stage? Sarah looked surprised but walked up to stand next to Robert. People whispered, wondering what was happening. When I met Sarah a year ago, she was a new employee with a big heart, Robert said. She showed me what customer service should look like. She built our training program. She launched Elite for Everyone and made it a success. Sarah stood tall, but her eyes showed she was nervous. That's why, Robert continued, I am very proud to announce that Sarah Collins will be the new CEO of Elite Motors, effective immediately. The room erupted in applause. Sarah put her hand over her mouth in shock. No one had seen this coming. A new employee to CEO in just 1 year was unheard of. "Mr. Wilson, I don't know what to say," Sarah whispered to Robert. "Say you'll keep making Elite Motors a place where everyone matters," Robert replied. Sarah nodded and stepped forward to the microphone. "Thank you for this incredible honor," she said. "I promise to lead this company with the same values Mr. Wilson has taught us all. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves our best. And that will never change." More applause filled the room. Reporters wrote quickly in their notebooks. This was big news. As Robert watched Sarah begin her first speech as CEO, he felt proud. His undercover journey had done more than fix problems. It had found the next generation of leadership. In the back of the room, Mike and Tom clapped loudly for Sarah. Their journey had changed them too. They had learned that true success comes from how you treat people, not just from what you sell them. Robert smiled. The company was in good hands now, all because one day he had dressed in old clothes and walked into his own showroom. The end.